Welcome to another episode of Mythic Drafting and our 10-part series on how to draft each of the 10 colour pairs in March of the Machine. Be sure to give this video a like and subscribe if you're keen on this type of content, as we'll be uploading draft videos as soon as the set is released on Arena. But now let's take a look at how we're going to draft blue-green when this set first gets onto Arena. And as always, I like to take a look at the uncommon signposts, the first of which is Mutagen Connoisseur, which is 1 green and a blue for a 0/5 Flying Vigilance for Dolkin Mutant, and it gets +1/+0 for each transformed permanent you control. So it's already pretty clear that blue-green is going to care about having transforming permanents, whether they be battles, creatures, or incubate tokens, and that you're going to want to get as many of these in your deck if you have Mutagen Connoisseur. And one such one of those cards is Invasion of Pyroluria, which is the blue-green battle. And it's blue and a green for a battle with 4 defender counters on it, and when it enters the battlefield you scry 3, and then reveal the top card of your library. If it's a land or double-faced card, you draw a card. Then, if you manage to flip it, it flips into Gargantuan Slabhorn, which is a 4/4 beast with Trample and Ward 2, and other transformed permanents you control have Trample and Ward 2. I think this is a pretty decent battle, as it's going to come down the early game, allow you to take a look at the top 3 cards of your library and ensure you have a good draw, and you're going to pretty consistently hit a land, or maybe even a double-faced card off of this and cycle it. It's a powerful effect for 2 mana, and I think you're happy playing this in the early game, or in the later game, to help sift away lands and look for cards. And then if you manage to flip it, it's a really strong creature, and I think in this deck you're going to have a lot of transformed permanents to take advantage of its effect. I also think that while it's going to be difficult to flip this battle early if you are playing it on turn 2, the battles in this set are going to have another effect, which is that your opponent isn't going to be able to attack you consistently for fear that you're going to swing back and hit the battle. So this is actually kind of a good card in that it's going to force your opponent to be a little bit more conservative, and you can take less damage in the early game to allow you to set up your powerful late game. There are also 2 other flip uncommons in blue-green that I think are quite good. The first one is Skyclave Aerialist, which is a 2/1 flying Merfolk Scout, and for 4 and a green Phyrexian mana you can transform it, and when you do, you transform it into Skyclave Invader, which is a 2/4 flyer, and when it transforms into it, you look at the top card of your library. If it's a land card, you put it onto the battlefield, and if you don't put the card into the battlefield, you put it into your hand. This is just a great creature. I mean, for 2 mana, you're going to start hitting them in the air. It's also going to help you flip your battles. Then in the later game, if you have additional mana, you can flip it into a 2/4, which is going to be a bit more of a defensive creature and still be able to hit battles. It's also going to effectively draw you a card in the late game. This is just a great card. It'll go in all blue decks, but in blue-green, I think it's going to be particularly good. Another card like this is Notvolved Hermit, which is 3 and a green for a 4/4 troll, and for 5 and a blue Phyrexian you can transform it. And whenever it attacks, up to 1 other target creature has base power and toughness 5/5 until end of turn. It's just a great creature. A 4 mana 4/4 is already fine, and then if you do flip it, it's going to be able to pump up your small creatures, or even better, your incubate tokens, because it's going to make the incubate token a 5/5, and then it will get all the additional +1/+1s from the counters it has. This is a really good card in the mid game, and it's a really good card in the late game as well, and is super solid in blue-green. There are also some off-color green flip cards that I think are going to be quite good. That being Herbology Instructor, which is 1 and a green for a 1/3. When it enters the battlefield, you gain 3 life, and you can play 6 and a black Phyrexian mana to transform it. When it does transform, target creature an opponent controls gets -0/-X until end of turn, where X is its power. And because it's a 3/3, this is going to be able to kill any 3 toughness creature when it flips. It's going to gain you life in the early game and is a good blocker. And it's going to provide a little bit of inevitability. And if you can put any +1/+1 counters on it, then it's just going to be super strong and be able to take out your opponent's best creature. This is a great card. It should definitely be played in all green decks and will be particularly good in green-blue, given that it cares about transformed permanents. Another card that I think could be decent in green-blue is Kami of Whispered Hopes. It's 2 and a green for a 1/1 spirit, and if 1 or more +1/+1 counters will be put on a permanent you control, you put that many +1/+1 counters +1 on that permanent. Then you can tap it to add X mana of any one color, where X is its power. This card serves 2 purposes in that any backup creatures you have in green are going to give additional effects, and if you have any incubate stuff as well, it's going to make all of your incubates an additional +1/+1. It It also allows you to ramp on turn 4 into a 5-drop, and if you can put +1/+1 counters on it, it can help you get a lot of mana. It's also a fixer, so green-blue potentially has the ability to splash a little bit easier than most colors. It's just a super solid card that I think will fit a lot of roles in a lot of different decks, and certainly green-blue is one of those. The next card is Corruption of Tawashi, which is 4 and a blue for an enchantment. When it enters the battlefield, you incubate 4. Whenever a permanent you control transforms, or a permanent enters the battlefield under your control transformed, you may draw a card. Do this only once each turn. Now, this is a bit of a slow creature in that you're going to have to pay 7 mana in 1 turn or over 2 turns to flip the incubate token. But if you have a turn to take off and do this, it's going to be extremely powerful because it means that every incubate token you have is also draw a card. Every transform permanent you have is draw a card. And it's just going to be an engine that allows you to have significant card advantage over your opponent. And in a blue-green dirtily deck, that's exactly what you want. Now let's take a look at some of the strong commons. The first of which is Bonded Herd Beast, which is a 5 mana 4/5, and it has 4 and a red Phyrexian to transform it into a 7/5 Menace Phyrexian Beast. I think this card is going to be pretty solid in this deck as a one-off. It's just a good blocker on turn 5 to stabilize the board. And then on a later turn, when you have spare mana lying around, you can transform it into a 7/5 Menace, which is just going to be really good at getting damage through. But Overgrown Pest is potentially the best green common in the set. It's 2 and a green for a 2/2 Pest, and when it enters the battlefield, you look at the top 5 cards of your library, and you may reveal a land or double-face card from among them and put that card into your hand, and the rest on the bottom of your library in a random order. Pest is just an exceptional card. It's similar to Contagious Vorak from All Will Be One, in that it's a good body, it's going to draw you a land card or a double-faced card, which this deck will have a lot of, and it's just hyper efficient 2-for-1 that you're going to want in every green deck, but is particularly good in green-blue, as it's more likely you're going to hit a permanent card as opposed to a land. Then we have Oculus Whelp, which is 3 and a blue for a Phyrexian Dragon flying 3/2, and as long as you control a transform in it, Oculus Whelp has, when it dies, draw a card. This card is, I think, pretty fine on rate, and then in green-blue, I think you're going to have transform permanents a lot of the time, so this effectively becomes a fly that they have to deal with. It can flip you battles, and then when they do deal with it, you're going to draw a card off it most of the time. The next card that I think will be decent in green-blue is Wary Thespian. It's 1 and a green for a 3/1. When it enters the battlefield or dies, you surveil 1. This card is just a fine early drop that's going to allow you to soak up, trade it for another creature from an aggressive deck, and it's also going to filter 2 cards from your deck to make sure that you're hitting the cards that you want. If you need land drops, you can make sure that they're on top, or you can filter away permanent cards. And then if you don't want land, you can filter them away. And in the late game, it's not completely dead and it gives you a body, and it's also going to help filter through your deck as well. Skittering Surveyor is then a card that I think is going to go in every deck and going to be a great first pick common if you don't open a really strong pack. But it's 3 mana for a 1/2 artifact construct, and when it enters the battlefield, you may search your library for a basic land card, reveal it, put it into your hand, and then shuffle. This is just a super effective 2-for-1, allows you to more easily fix and splash, and make sure you hit your land drops so you can play your expensive spells, and can even potentially trade with cards like Wary Thespian. It also has the ability to be used to cast Convoke spells, one of which is Meeting of the Minds, which is 3 and a blue for an instant, convoke, draw 2 cards. I think this card has a specific home in green-blue, as you're going to want to most likely be a bit of a defensive deck that is trying to get to the late game, and so if you can play a 2-drop and then a 3-drop, and then on turn 4 you might play another 3-drop, and then you just pay 1 mana at the end of your opponent's turn, tap your 3 creatures, and you get to draw 2 cards at their end step. It's just a pretty efficient card, and I think you're going to want 1 or 2 of these in some green-blue decks. But the cards that you're going to want to be playing in green-blue are the amazing rares. The first of which is Inga and a Seeker, which is 2 and a green and a blue for a 4/4 human god, and it has creatures you control have vigilance and tap to add 1 mana of any color. Spend this mana only to cast a creature spell, and whenever you cast a creature spell, if 3 or more mana from creatures were spent to cast it, draw a card. This is just an efficient creature that gives all of your creatures vigilance. It allows you to attack easily, and then if you can start chaining creatures into each other, you're quickly going to spiral out of control as you draw heaps of creatures to have more mana, to be able to cast more creatures and draw more cards off Inga. If you do manage to draft Inga, I think you really want to prioritize having a very heavy creature count, and it does make battles slightly worse, which is a bit of an awkward effect. Another card that I think will be quite good in green-blue is Invasion of Ixalan. It's 1 and a green for a battle with 4 defender counters. When it enters the battlefield, you look at the top 5 cards of your library. You may reveal a permanent card from among them, put it into your hand, and then you put the rest on the bottom of your library in a random order. This is just a good filtering effect, and I think you've got to look at it a bit like an anticipate, in that you play it on turn 2, you make sure you're getting the land drop you need or the creature that you need, and then it's also going to put the battle on the field, and if you do manage to deal with it and kill it, it becomes a 4/3 trample dinosaur. And whenever you cast a spell, it gains indestructible until end of turn. This creature is pretty hard to deal with. It's going to be really effective at flipping battles, in that you'll be able to cast a spell on your first main step and attack with it, and if your opponent doesn't have a 5 toughness blocker, then they basically have to choose between chumping with the enough toughness to block all the damage, or letting a battle flip, or having it attack their life total down. It's a pretty efficient threat, and considering the fact that your 2 mana is already getting you 1 card, if you do manage to flip this, it's just all upside. The next amazing rares are some of the blue ones, and one of the ones that I particularly like in green-blue is Zephyr's Singer. It's 2 blue for a flying vigilance 3/4 Siren Pirate, and it has Convoke, and when it enters the battlefield, you put a flying counter on each creature that convoked it. One of the things that green-blue tends to have is some big fat green creatures, and then it doesn't sometimes have ways to get through lots of chump blockers, and Zephyr's Singer is going to be able to use those huge creatures to cast it, and make them all flyers, and then it itself is a flying vigilance 3/4, which is a really strong threat, hard to deal with, and also a good defensive creature. I think this is just a super efficient card. It's going to go in most blue decks, but I really particularly like it in green-blue. Another card that I think is decent in green-blue is Invasion of Zegovia. It's 2 and a blue for a battle with 4 defender counters, and when it enters the battlefield, you create 2 1/1 blue Kraken creature tokens with trample. Now these tokens can be used to convoke cards out like Zephyr's Singer and other cards with convoke in green-blue. However, it's just a decent, it gives you 2 decent creatures to attack into, to put +1/+1 counters on, and then if you can flip the battle, you get Catus Sea Turret of Segovia, which is a 3/3 legendary creature serpent. It gives all your non-creature spells you cast convoke, and at the beginning of your end step, you untap up to 4 target creatures. Now, if you have this card in green-blue, you've got to strike a balance between having enough creatures for convoke and also being able to take advantage of the backside and giving all of your non-creature spells convoke, so that you can cast all of your instants on your opponent's end step using your creatures. It also allows you to attack in with your creatures and then just untap them and effectively give them vigilance. It's just a great card, and I think it'll be particularly fun to play with in green-blue. That's it for green-blue, so let's take a look at the overall game plan. It's clearly the best home for all flip cards, and you're going to want to play as many of them as you can when you have the cards that have the payoff for them. And outside of that, I think it can really do multiple things. It can be a creature heavy deck that wants to bash through. It can also be a nice mix and have some convoke aspects to it, as well as some incubate as well. I think it also has the potential to play as a ramp deck, and if it does do this, then it's likely to be the classic blue-green good stuff deck, in that you want to have some rampers, some defensive creatures, and then the huge payoffs. And if you do this, I think you can pick up some fixing and potentially allow yourself to splash any powerful rares that get past you in pack 3. I do look forward to seeing what blue-green likes to do in this set. It's often a colour pair that lacks a really consistent theme, and I'm hoping that there will be one that we can utilise when this set comes out on an arena. And if you like this video, be sure to give it a like and subscribe, and you'll see a video of me drafting blue-green on this channel soon enough.